All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Today, Sandy and myself, I'm John, are going to start a series of conversations in which they're really exploratory. Their journey, it's a journey we're going on that we want to share, and they're not scripted, which can create a little bit of angst if you like a script. Do you like a script?
I love a script.
I love a script. We don't have one. So part of this is a journey. It is meant to be a conversation, and a conversation that's shared. And really today we want to answer two questions. What are we trying to do here? And why do we care? Why are we trying to do that? Those are the two things. And we may give a little bit of context about ourselves as well as we feel appropriate. But really those are the two things to jump in. What are we trying to do here? And why are we here? Yeah, that's what we want to do. What do you think?
Yeah, so even that is part of the exploration, right? So this was sort of a vision and idea that really was sparked by you, John, and you came to me, and of course I said, "Oh boy, I'm not sure if I'm ready to jump into this, but let's see what's here." It seemed like there was enough for us, just in terms of what both of us are experiencing in this sense that there are just so many divisions right now,
Mhm.
and the things that are dividing us are we're going to find out in the end are probably not worth the impact that it's having to communities, families, and just interpersonal relationships that we're seeing in the workplace, in families, in communities, in churches. And so I think there was just this sense from both of us on our hearts that we're not really liking the direction that things are going right now.
Mhm.
We see some warning signs, and that I know, at least for me, there's been a grieving of
Mm.
just some of the ways that I'm seeing us engage as a people and
Yeah.
what that means.
There's a lot in that. So let's call a few spades spades. I think that will help people track what we're trying to do here. So right now in our country, which is America, we have a lot of divisiveness. Everything seems to be fueled to greater hate your neighbor. Don't trust your neighbor, hate them, don't trust them. They're trying to kill you. Um, and that's the extreme rhetoric of the message, right? And what you and I are saying is that is garbage. And in the end, or hopefully not in the near future, we're going to wake up and realize that these things we're fighting over are not worth fighting over. And we need to respect one another and come together in what we can agree on to build unity, which is, and the entire premise is there's a lot more for us to come together on than we're giving each other credit for. And that's where you and I decided, hey, well, we're not exactly the same person. Let's engage in some difficult questions and difficult conversations. And maybe that can be an example and an encouragement to someone to do the same. And we can start to stitch back, you know, the tattered flag of our nation so that we're standing in unity again.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
As a symbol. How's that sit with you?
that resonates for me. And I think, I want to just like name the elephant in the room. I mean,
Yeah.
we are very different people. I mean, I think people looking at us visually, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to see. But what folks might not know is we're family,
Yes, we
right?
are.
Which is awesome. And I think I never want to ask someone to do something I'm not willing to do myself. And I think one of the real gifts that I've had, and I think you would agree, is that we've had chances to have difficult conversations across the dinner table, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming from very different backgrounds and experiences, and just even in the ways in which the world might categorize us, right? And give us different labels, categories of people who we are, and what
Mm-hmm.
that means for how we show up in different conversations. It's hard. There are times when you and I vehemently disagree. There are times when we probably agree, but how we get there is very different. And so I think part of what we're trying to do here is model those conversations and to
Mm-hmm.
even continue to wrestle together as we're trying to figure out this thing called life.
100%. And before I lose it, I want to comment on something you just said. It's there's times where we disagree, or we often agree, but we're disagreeing on something. And I just couldn't help but think, I think most of the time you and I find that we're debating, right? Because there's such a thing as civil, healthy debate, even if very passionate.
We know it well.
Yeah, we're going to share that. Trust me. That just
Yeah.
wait for the right fuse to get lit, and everyone's
Yeah.
going to get to see what this looks like.
Yeah.
But even in those situations, what I've found from our conversations is we agree on the core things.
Yeah.
It's how much do we let ourselves get caught up in the small things, and that is a difficult freaking thing because the small things are screaming and on fire and they're angry, and the big things are quiet and still. It's kind of like slow waters run deep. It's the river behind the forest that's on fire, right? So we have to push up and back to that thing where we agree on, and then we're not on fire, everything's not burning, and we can address the other issues. Because maybe big and small is not right, but I'd say core versus not
exactly
core. And
exactly. Yeah, because sometimes the small things matter.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't want to dismiss the small things as, irrelevant.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of where are we going to put our focus and what is the outcome we're seeking. And to me, it's about the outcome we're seeking, because some of the things that are smaller, we might need to let go of, but it's not always easy getting to that point.
That's well said. And, when we're kind of warming up for this a little bit, like, before physical exercise or something, kind of talking, I wrote down a comment you made where I thought it was really concisely saying a lot of what we're trying to do here, right? And I think this summarizes it. But what we're trying to do here is model intentional conversations in differences. And maybe model is not even right. We're having intentional conversations across differences. I misspoke. So if we are pursuing and engaging in intentional conversations across differences, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that hits it.
That really is it. And for me, I think the piece about this that becomes important, it's not we're just having a single conversation, but this is an enduring conversation. This is over a lifetime of relationship between you and I. And I think that's the work that is needed. I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, we can just kind of, drop in, have a conversation because we connected it at a dinner table one time. These issues, a lot of times that we're dealing with, they're going to take time to unpack some history, some experiences, some hurts, and to really be able to shape a vision forward. So I think it takes that intentionality and time.
I fully agree. And given that, right, because you and I've had a lifetime of honing kind of to the point we have good relational equity, right? Because we continue to seek each other. And that's a benefit we have. But the other piece, which this is such a gift to me doing this, is because we're being intentional in doing this, we're also being intentional in having conversations with each other and attacking the things head on that we've probably avoided for the sake of like limited time together and just wanting to have pleasant time together. So I'm really excited to see our relationship grow in this by facing head on the things that are uncomfortable that we probably both think we disagree on, and realize, well, what really are we talking about here if we keep stepping up in level until the point we agree, and then we can come back in. And it's not consensus we're looking for, it's respect of one another. So
Exactly.
with the what, I'm all on board, and I think the why is an easy tag on to that and is directly related. If we're trying to have intentional conversations across differences, why are we doing that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's simple. I'm heartbroken.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely heartbroken. I grieve when I see the level of fragmentation and just brokenness in relationship and in community. And I have just seen too much harm done as we sort of grapple over political ideology or positions on social issues. Again, not that those things are unimportant. It's part of life. But as we're doing that, the damage, I think the cost has been greater than I'm willing to sort of just allow to continue, at least in my own life. So, what small steps can I take in my own life? And then is there something there that can be helpful to others? Because I think that we need to really name what are the outcomes we're seeking. And if what we're doing now isn't working, are we willing to stop? Are we willing to change course?
Well said. That really does resonate with me, because what I'm hating right now is watching what I think is our country falling apart, right? And the reason I think that is because I'm seeing more and more hate from Americans to Americans, right? At that really high level. And I hate it. I hate it. You see the distrust going to the supermarket. You see the distrust when you're on the, God forbid, you look at the news. And that is the exact thing that we want to attack. It's like, no, enough divisiveness. We want to, in whatever small way we can, have the bravery to stand up and say, hey, forget all the agendas, forget all of the crap, forget all of that. We are going to be a voice for what we believe to be true, fair, and equitable. And what that means is we're going to pursue greater respect for one another, greater love for one another, and greater relationship with one another by attacking the issues head on, born from love and respect, so that we can further grow that, strengthen that, and begin to start the counter movement against the divisiveness. Right. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, so it's interesting. So even as you're speaking, you know, you're seeing this from a perspective of the divisiveness as a nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you, John, and I'm wondering if we should share a little bit about our backgrounds in here, because you have a particular affinity and connectedness to sense of citizenship, right? In some ways, that's different from even how I enter this conversation. And I think that will shape the way that our dialogue unfolds over time. So I think it's helpful, even if we give a little context.
Yeah, let's give some context on ourselves. And, you know, we've answered the what and why, but I say we give a little bit of a taste of the type of things we're trying to attack, right? Which is what I'm hearing you just said as well. So in the what and why, right, there's also the fact that, like, and we'll get to this in a second, but just to light the fuse for us, like, I believe that this is the only country and the best country of human existence to allow us the opportunity to have conversations like this. And that is something that is so bloody precious that we've lost sight of, because as a nation, we've gotten fat off of freedom and we've taken for granted it. And that goes into, like, my tie for citizenship and stuff, right? Like, feeling that is, I feel like, so first and foremost, I'm a Christian, right? So I serve Jesus Christ. He's my king. And I believe that because of that, because I've made that choice with my life, I need to protect any system that further allows me to be that, right? And I see at its core, this nation still, at least the principles it was founded off of that have been imperfectly applied, allow me that opportunity greater than anywhere else in the world. And a lot of that love and passions come from my time in service. I was in the Army, and my travels there and what I learned, and then my experiences living across the country in a bunch of different places, and, you know, different things that I've seen. So that's all shaped it. That's all helped shape that view for me, you know, significantly. And then the other thing that's a huge contributing factor on my end is, so, time in the service. And then I'm also an aspiring entrepreneur. I'm not going to claim it yet. Right. And I also am a father of 4 young children, right, who I want them to have the same opportunities that we've had in our lives to make this place better. And I don't want that robbed from them. So those 3 things make me very passionately care about how can we protect certain things, improve other things, and keep these things going forward. So I think that's a bit about both that perspective on where we are as a nation, and then also on who I am as a person. Is there anything, here's a fun question, because I'll do the same for you. Is there anything from what I said that I'm missing that you would add before we get some of your context?
I think that really encapsulates it. I mean, I know you, and those are the things that I think have really shaped you, and that have come to the forefront when you and I have some really passionate conversations. And some of the aspects that you raise are part of the challenge that you and I experience in some of our conversations. Because I'm like, that's not the perspective I come from. That's not the experience I come from. Those aren't the influence and shaping, you know, perspectives that I bring to these conversations. So there are times I'm like, I hear that country part coming to the forefront, and I'm like, yes and no. But yes, mostly yes, but also no, from where I sit.
So given that, let's get some context on you, and then let's jump into the yes and no, and
Yeah.
let's pull on that string a bit, and I think we'll be in a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. So I mean, my story is a little different. I'm the child of immigrants from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of grew up East Coast with teaching that, yeah, we came to this country, we were able to make a better life. My dad really was passionate about the fact that, he landed in New York and was able to have a job, within a day.
Hmm.
And to him, that was freedom. And to him, this country was just amazing. And so I kind of grew up early in my life thinking, you know what, barriers really don't exist. We're here in a great country. We have opportunity. I'm supposed to focus, work hard. Life's going to be good. And it didn't take long for me to hit some barriers
Hmm.
that weren't part of my teaching. So school was for me the place where I learned that race mattered. And it
Hmm.
was something that was taught to me at an age and in a way that I wasn't ready for the conversation. I didn't have a language for the conversation because it wasn't spoken in my house.
Hmm.
I often just share this story, but it is pivotal in terms of the way that I see the world, but also why this conversation is so important to me. But it was fifth grade that I found out that I had a race and that it had meaning in this world and that I was going to probably experience the world differently based on that. And I tell people it was my fifth grade teacher. We were doing a reading portion on the Underground Railroad. And prior to reading the passage, he asked me to stand up in front of the class and to tell the class what the Underground Railroad was, because those were my kind of people. And I just remember at the age of 10, literally standing up. I was so shy and I had no idea what the Underground Railroad was. And I just remember feeling shame. First, because I didn't have the answer. And
Hmm.
secondarily, because the tone of his voice told me there's something about your race and it's not good. And it was the beginning of understanding what these categories mean in our country. And while I didn't have language and I didn't have a way of processing that, it made me see myself differently.
Hmm.
And so I think I have been in a lifetime pursuit of not only understanding how is it that we came to these categories, what's the meaning we place on them, and and then how is it impacting the way that we see each other and enter into conversations. And it literally has been a lifetime pursuit in every aspect of my professional work, my personal life, and then sort of, stepping in and, getting in an interracial marriage
Hmm.
and becoming mom
To, to,
to two children who don't look like me and having to even parent through race.
to,
Uh, life's been interesting. Life's been fun,
well,
but yeah.
I love it because there's a few really fun plugs here, right? In
There's
case you
so
haven't
much.
picked it up,
Yeah.
Sandy's my mom, and we're calling each other first names for the sake of the show. She's also Black and I'm white,
Go figure.
which which is why we have nicknames for each other, kind of playfully for this. So she's Scrappy and I'm the Beard,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of to call a spade, right? You'll see why she's Scrappy, and well, I
It's
have a
obvious.
beard.
Yeah.
Like think more like Viking berserker warrior type of dude, and you'll get the flavor when we really get fired up. But that's fun. Not only did you marry like a white guy coming from like, probably really, so you're really fighting through the race stuff
Yeah.
before you guys got married, and then you came and not only married a white dude, but he was a cop at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Let's add that into the mix.
So like, talk about, I don't like stereotypes, and then just putting yourself in the blender of stereotype deconstruction,
Yeah.
and then having some sheltered kids to get to help influence and have these types of conversations. It's really good. Before we keep digging into some of the meat there, would you give a little bit about what you've accomplished professionally? Because I think it's important, right? I'm, for myself, really shortly, I have a good job I'm happy about. I went through my bachelor's. I'm an Army veteran. I was an officer and entrepreneur and father, right? I think those are the key things for me. I think it matters what your credentials are because one, they're a lot more impressive than mine, but two, I think it helps inform the conversation. I know you have your doctorate,
Yeah.
but I forget what it's
Yeah.
in. And if you
Yeah,
could just
that's
give some
okay.
background.
Yeah, so I don't love credentials. I actually
I
never
know.
really set out to earn them. It was just more, I had questions. I mean, this is the reason. I had questions and I wanted to pursue them. And so that led me into a doctoral program in education. And the reason, I pursued the degree in education is because I really did have to navigate the educational system as racialized terrain. And I saw a better way, and I wanted
Mm,
to be able to influence the conversation. It is that simple. It wasn't a pursuit of degrees, it was a pursuit of a conviction. And I've been in higher education for over 20 years now, and currently serving in a diversity role. And I don't even like that name. I don't like that title because I don't think it actually captures the heart of what my commitment is. I mean,
mhm.
my commitment is to really saying, when we have students in the classroom, how are we ensuring that we're telling the full story? So that, to me, curriculum matters. It's telling a story, and it's creating a narrative that influences the way that we even see one another, and that
Mm.
we think about shaping our world, shaping our history moving forward, and how people are showing up in workplaces. And so I have real simple pursuits. It kind of can whittle it down to that. How are we telling the full story and not perpetuating false narratives about each other, which are just dangerous? I think
Yeah.
they're literally dangerous. To me, it's life and death. It is
It
that
is life
serious.
and death. I fully agree with you. And let's push into that specifically, because I do think it's life and death. And I think one of the counter movements that's gone to the race issue is let's raise colorblind children, right?
It's horrible.
We're all equal. We're all this. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I believe the
Yep.
intention was good in the thing. Like, I don't want to raise a kid who has a stereotype when they see a Black person or a Latino person or whatever. And yeah, that's a good intention. But I love the conversation you shared with me, because I thought it was very succinctly put, from the episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man, I think
Yeah.
it's called.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like you lose what, in my mind, one of the things that makes America so beautiful, you lose the mosaic when you're colorblind, right?
Yeah.
We are better because of our stinking differences. And if we try
Absolutely.
to gray wash everything so that it is all one thing, because when you mix everything together, it becomes a grayish color, gray to black. Then if you do that, you miss the richness that
Yeah.
makes this land unique, that makes our opportunities unique, that makes this conversation unique. And engaging in it differently, I think, is important. It's the, how do you engage to learn and have respect, opposed to discount or write off, right? Is that fair
Great.
from your
That
perspective?
that's that's exactly right. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to. I mean, God created difference. It's
Yep.
a beautiful thing. Now, how we have placed different value on that difference is the problem.
Correct.
And I think it's really difficult for us in our human capacity to just sort of overcome our biases. I mean, we're taught in every way that there are differences, and we put limitations around those differences. We put certain expectations, assumptions, fears around those differences.
Mhm.
And I think unless we are taught to really engage with one another, to really hear each other's stories, to really get to know people, I don't think we have the capacity to just sort of rise above. I think, again, those false narratives that have been played out over time. I really don't.
Well, everyone has this idealistic thought that if a tragedy strikes, they're going to rise to their greatest level of performance. It's a
Yeah,
well-known fact, proven time and time again, that you're going to fall to your lowest level of training and equipping. So
exactly.
you go test it for yourself.
I have.
No,
Yeah,
no,
funny story on that one.
because that was really aimed at the audience. Like, if someone's like, "Oh, that's not true," yeah, go test it for yourself, dude.
Yeah,
Um,
it's easy. The theoretical is easy.
the theoretical is easy. I mean, here,
Live it out.
and that's what we're trying to do here. Because I was thinking about, like, one, what a great proof. The proof's in the pudding. You
Yeah.
didn't care about the credentials. You want to answer questions. Here we are having this conversation. Like, the questions that we want answered, we are willing to endure uncomfortable things. And I'm like excited for the next fiery piece. And it may not happen in this conversation, but I'm excited for us to get passionate in a conversation, because then I know we're really doing the hard work,
You want
right?
to fight me?
I do.
Yeah, you do.
I do, because I know that the reward of the fight is going to be valuable.
Yeah.
I want, and I was thinking, well, what's an actionable step? If someone's like listening to this and be like, oh, like this is great. Like, what is an actionable step that someone can take away? It's like, okay, well, if you agree that you want to bridge the gap that's there, then you have to engage in intentional conversations to do that. And the best way to do that is to just start talking to people. Say, hi, I'm trying to figure out this life thing and I want to just get to know you, right?
Yeah.
And that seems to me to be a good starting point in all this. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think the other piece too is just to ask ourselves, is it worth it? Is this sort of like division and I'm going to keep you in your box, you're liberal, I'm conservative, you're this, I'm that. Is it worth it? What are we gaining? And what is the fear? What is that we think we're going to lose if we give that up? Yeah, so I want people to ask themselves those questions.
The only thing we lose in maintaining the divisiveness, well, not the only thing, the biggest thing we lose in maintaining the divisiveness is the strength that comes through the unity born from respect, right? For each other. That is the biggest thing. And, a house divided will fall, right? Something that's not in congruence with itself will buckle under any pressure. And that means you are vulnerable. And that's why, to me, this matters on every level, from the individual to the nation, is if we cannot stand in unity on big things, like if I can't stand in unity on my personal beliefs, I will fall as a human being to every temptation that comes my way, right? I will let people walk all over me. I will have unhealthy things. I will not lead my family well in love, right? And I can't help but laugh at how many reasons we've given people to hate us already, because we're spanning the gap from different political views, which will probably surface. I'd consider myself more moderate. I know that we have different views politically. I know that we are different races. I know that we're different genders. I know that we are different,
I think pride in nation. I mean, I think you and I battled a little bit on that, and I still wrestle with that, right?
I would call it hope in nation. And my pride comes from that hope.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is why I think we can probably pin our hat on after we play with it a bit for today's conversation. But the pride, I do have pride in this nation, because I see what it is compared to what we have available to us across the globe. But my biggest thing, where I really draw energy from, is hope, because we have old barriers that are old as humans themselves that we need to address. And now we have these crazy, asinine new barriers we're building at a scary rate today. And it's like, hey guys, like, whoa. We already had enough trouble working on undoing the old barriers. Now we have these like screaming new barriers that are being built. That's a problem. We need to address that now. That's why you and I are here, right? Talking right now, like, let's get past these and bringing that right back. It's like, that's why I have hope. I'm proud of what we've been able. I'm proud of the opportunity we have, what we've done compared to the rest of the world, though it's not nearly enough, and what we can do and what we can set up for our children and our children's children to do. And that hope fuels that feeling of pride, and that pride being that I wouldn't want to be anywhere else because of that. So how does that sit with you, having kind of pulled on the thread a little bit? Because it's not just like this raw, unflawed land of the free.
Exactly.
It's like, no, it's a battle. It's something to build upon.
Yeah, I can definitely get on board with the hope aspect. I see the potential and the capacity, and I think part of my frustration is us not living into that capacity and that potential.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it's painful to watch. For me, I've sort of had this love-hate relationship, genuinely. Of course, I see the opportunities that are afforded. Of course, I see the freedoms that were granted. This is home. but I don't know another home. So it's not a
Mhm.
comparative for me. But there's certainly been disappointment and there's definitely been hurt. And when I do see um, different treatment, when I see categorizations of people, when I see um, histories of harm repeated with knowledge, I think that's the part where distrust seeps in for me because I'm fine if we're like, oh, we didn't know. And I'm like, when we know and we find creative ways to continue
Mhm.
to harm, that's a tough one for me. That's a tough one for me. So it's difficult for me to sort of get to that point of pride, but the hope piece, absolutely. No, that really, that's spot on.
Well, and I think that the pride is, where do you source the pride, right? Because you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. What you just identified is where the work is. Where these
yeah,
prompts are, where these creative solutions based on something as Neanderthalish of like the color of your skin are still being perpetuated, or like what your views are on things. Like, goodness gracious, like, can you be dumber than to try and categorize something based on such a minute difference, right? Like, to me, it's a sign of such enormous unintelligence, to try and discredit based on that, right? Like,
yeah,
the ignorance is astounding, and that's because you've helped, when I was younger, helped hold up the light to show me the harm of that, right? So like, ignorance is only cured by knowledge, right,
yeah,
in the pursuit therein. But the pride for me, it doesn't come in our freaking government, right? It did. There's a lot of work to be done, especially today. There's a lot that we need to do there, um, and they need to get out of our pudding, frankly. They need to start stepping back. And that, look, just if you don't mind for a minute, please correct it in anything that you disagree. I know you don't need the permission to do that, but they need to back up in how they're treating our people right now, being Americans. Like, they need to get the heck back, because it's not good. It's dangerous. And it's further exasperating the problems of divisiveness. And for me, the pride comes from not the government, not the institutions that are taking advantage of things, not those things which are very much so a part of our country and need corrected, right? So I can't just divorce it and say it's great. But my pride comes in people like you, people like me, the conversations we're having here, the organizations that are working to do this type of work, the fact that this land is fertile enough that it has the protections that we're able to do that still, right?
mhm,
That's where my pride comes from. Like, the potential, the hope. It's born, my pride is from the hope of what we can do based on what we've seen accomplished and what we know we can further accomplish, because the work is nowhere done. And I think that distinction is important, right?
yeah,
Because the source is what matters. You can't take good water
absolutely.
from a poisoned well, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
How's that
Yeah.
sit?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with anything that you just shared. I mean, I think I'll have a longer runway to get to pride, even when I think about the source of it.
Hmm.
But that's okay. I mean, I don't. Again, I think I'm always thinking about what's my goal here, what's my pursuit, what's the intended outcome. I don't know that I'm trying to get to pride. Maybe one day I'll happen upon it and I'll be like, this is a good thing. I think I'm just trying to get to the potential. I mean,
Yeah.
the potential that we have.
And that's what I think we agree on, right? Because like, and I want to call out, like, very simply, what's happening here. You and I have a disagreement on associating pride with this country, right?
Mhm,
And we're okay with that because we agree upon the hope and the potential.
mhm.
And you and I are both willing to protect whatever's going to further fuel that hope and potential, right?
Yeah,
It-
yeah, yeah.
that's the thing.
And then I think how you and I cultivate that might look different in our lives too, and
Yeah.
that's fine as well, right? So I mean, for
Yes.
me, I try to cultivate hope through education. Like to
Yeah.
me, that is hope.
Yes.
Like you actually get to pursue knowledge and it's endless, and like literally, there's nothing that can limit that. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that in life there can be barriers. There's actually no genuine barrier to you being able to pursue a question and seek knowledge. I mean, libraries, right?
Still.
I love the fact that it's like we can for the most part. I'm not saying that there aren't sort of like deserts in the world
Yeah.
and differences in access, but certainly that is something where I see like there are freedoms and opportunities. And so I love the idea that it's like, if I really want to help us reach potential that is available to us in this nation, um, being able to steer and influence education is key to that for me.
I think it's key to the equation, right? And I'm grateful that we have different positions in the fight, but we're fighting the same fight,
Yeah.
right? Because we're more effective, right? If you're hitting in this area and I'm hitting in this area and we're hitting at the same target, like we're pushing for the same goal, we're going to get further because we're working in our arenas towards the same goal. And that's what's so important here. You and I, what kind of inflamed us to do this is like, we need to fight for and protect the opportunity that our hope is derived in, right?
Yeah.
The freedom that our hope is derived in needs
Yeah.
protected. And that's why we're standing up and doing this, despite knowing full well
Exactly.
some people are going to have a fit about it and they can deal with it because this matters, right?
Yeah. And I think, so, I mean, I think we're talking about some shared goals. And I think that's really important because I really think that matters. I think a lot of times when we recognize, man, we just are coming from different places. This is hard. We have different views. This could end poorly. I think returning to like, what are our shared goals? And a lot of times we can find that. And that's where I want to put the emphasis. I'm really, maybe it's old age, I'm just growing weary in some of the battles and the fights. I'm like, all right, folks, we're in the room together. What is it that we can pursue that is a common goal? And let's do it. And I would say that I don't even think my goal at this point is like changing the nation, changing the world. I'm like, I just want to be able to have that conversation with the person in the room that I have the conflict with, right? And it's literally starting with just that interpersonal, which sounds easier said than done. I mean, I'm still astonished that there are days I show up and I'm like, I don't know if I can be in the room with that person. Like, this is hard.
I think it even starts one step further with the interpersonal. Interpersonal.
Interpersonal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because and then it's the interpersonal in your community. Because I'm thinking it's like, I do think a great closing thing for us is what are our goals that we agree upon based on this conversation, right? And I'll try a quick summary to see how close I am from memory. But hey, we agree upon wanting to have intentional conversation across differences that champion the pursuit of respecting one another, earning greater unity, earning greater compassion, and thus creating the fuel for hope to change things for the better, right? And to protect our freedom to do that, right? That's the second thing. We also agree on protecting the freedoms and opportunities that we have in this place to continue that work, right? And then the third thing is our goal is to affect change where we have the ability to affect change.
That's it. Wherever that is.
And right now, that's you and me.
Yeah, honestly. And I want to add one more thing to the mix on that, because I think for me, a lot of this just really it does come from a place of my faith, right? And I think it was that realization of my own brokenness and the redemptive work on the cross. And then what it means to kind of look each other in the eyes and be like, yep, I know you're broken. I'm broken. This is messy. This is hard. How do we reach into that, press into that, and know that we've been given a gift of sort of this restoration, right? And we get to now be part of bringing that restoration and healing, and sort of being reconciled to one another. We get to participate in that work, right? Yep. That to me is amazing. And so that is core and foundational. So, I mean, it's always trying to return to that principle of like, yeah, there was a God that I offended to, and I was accepted. And so what does it mean to accept someone when I'm like, man, I see ugliness, I see hate, I see division, I see every reason for us to not be at the table together. And yet there is this core piece of like, we are part of a family. Whether we like it or not, we didn't choose each other. This is our calling. Like this is it.
This is our work.
This is our work.
That is such a critical point that we are also in full agreement on. And you know, the one funny thing in it, it's like we as a people have to stop demanding perfection from broken things. Like, you're broken, I'm broken. we're not going to create perfect solutions, but we can create something better together than by ourselves. And
Right.
that's the beauty of this, you know, tied into all that.
Right. And I think, and if we understand that our ability to be in relationship is more important
Mhm.
than whatever brokenness we come from or continue to experience, that is the pursuit. That's the pursuit. It's worth it.
100%. So, hey, thank you for this conversation. We made a promise to ourselves at the end of every conversation, no matter how heated, and this one was pretty vanilla as far as heat goes, um, that we thank each other for being committed to intentionally work across any differences and pursue greater understanding. So, just want to thank you for showing up and starting today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, John. Appreciate the conversation.
All right. Thank you. Bye. Let's see here. Stop.